When a person vanishes, we expect their inner circle to radiate frantic, unscripted terror. Yet, sometimes the lens captures a facade cracking in real time. In these 5 cases, the ultimate breakthrough came not from a laboratory, but from the chilling, bizarre television interviews that exposed the predators hiding in plain sight. What happens when the mask slips on camera? We lock our doors at night believing the threat remains outside in the dark. But what happens when the architect of your nightmare holds the master key to your sanctuary? Some predators hide behind scholarly accolades and polite smiles right next door. How quickly does a mask slip when the camera is rolling live? On June 30th, 2011, the sweltering Georgia heat pressed down on a local news reporter standing outside a historic apartment complex in Macon. A 25-year-old law student named Stephen McDaniel stood before the camera, portraying the role of a distressed neighbor concerned about a missing classmate. He spoke with a trembling voice, painting a picture of an innocent bystander desperate to help the community. Midway through the live broadcast, the reporter mentioned a breaking development unfolding just yards away. She stated that investigators had just discovered a human body sealed inside the trash receptacles near the parking lot. Stephen McDaniel stopped speaking. His eyes grew wide as a profound physical shock washed over his pale face. His posture collapsed inward, and he began to hyperventilate as the undeniable reality of his crumbling facade hit him on live television. This catastrophic failure of composure transformed an eager volunteer into the absolute center of a chilling investigation. Lauren Giddings was a 27-year-old recent graduate of the Walter George School of Law at Mercer University. She carried a reputation for boundless energy, dedicating her academic career to public defense and helping those without a voice in the legal system. Lauren lived in a quiet residential neighborhood nestled near the university campus in Macon, Georgia. Her home was an older historic apartment complex characterized by peeling white paint, heavy wooden doors, and wide porches wrapped in thick southern ivy. The building sat on a slight incline overlooking a paved parking area lined with large industrial refuse bins. Lauren occupied a ground-floor unit situated at the end of a long, shadowy exterior hallway. She spent the final weeks of June 2011 preparing for the grueling Georgia State bar exam. Her daily routine consisted of structured study sessions, evening jogs around the campus perimeter, and constant communication with her tight-knit family. She called her mother every single day without fail, sharing minor details about her classes and her plans for the future. Her loved ones described her as a beacon of warmth who possessed an extraordinary ability to make everyone around her feel valued. Lauren envisioned a long career defending the vulnerable, unaware that her own vulnerability was being cataloged. Directly next door to Lauren lived another young law student named Stephen McDaniel. The spatial layout of the complex placed their living room windows mere feet apart, separated only by a narrow concrete walkway. Stephen projected the image of a socially awkward but harmless scholar who shared the academic circle of his neighbor. He walked the same campus paths, attended the same rigorous study groups, and blended into the stressful environment of law school. Neighbors often saw him carrying heavy legal textbooks or sitting in silence on the communal porch. His peers dismissed his intense stares and rigid posture as mere quirks of an eccentric, intelligent young man. Stephen weaponized this perception of harmlessness to mask a deep, festering obsession that consumed his every waking thought. He presented himself as a helpful peer eager to discuss case law or offer assistance with building maintenance issues. The community viewed him as just another ambitious student aiming for a prestigious legal career. No one suspected that behind his studious facade, he was napping the routines and physical security of the woman living on the other side of his wall. This facade of normalcy allowed him to operate unnoticed in an environment where safety was assumed. during the final week of June 2011. A sudden and deafening silence replaced the constant flow of communication from Lauren Giddings. Her family grew alarmed when she failed to make her daily phone calls or respond to text messages. The concern escalated into outright panic when Lauren missed a critical study group session that she had organized herself. 3 of her closest friends decided to conduct a physical check on her well-being. They walked the short distance from the campus to her historic apartment building, navigating the shaded concrete walkway leading to her front door. The heavy wooden door remained locked, prompting them to contact the property manager for emergency access. Upon stepping inside the apartment, the friends found a chilling stillness instead of a frantic study environment. Her textbooks sat stacked on the desk, her wallet remained on the kitchen counter, and her keys rested near the entryway. Everything inside the residence appeared normal, yet Lauren was absent from the space. The friends dialed emergency services, bringing the Macon Police Department to the quiet residential street. Patrol vehicles filled the narrow street outside the apartment complex, casting harsh flashing lights against the peeling white paint of the building. Uniformed officers conducted a preliminary sweep of the ground floor unit, looking for any immediate signs of a struggle or forced entry. The physical space offered no answers, as the windows remained intact and the furniture stood undisturbed. Investigators faced a baffling scenario, trapped between the lack of physical disruption and the undeniable reality of a missing woman. Detectives began canvassing the surrounding units, knocking on doors to establish a timeline of her final known movements. As the police tape went up, Stephen McDaniel inserted himself into the center of the developing narrative. He approached the uniformed officers on the porch, offering detailed, unsolicited information about the neighborhood layout. He volunteered to speak with the local news crews arriving at the perimeter, presenting himself as a reliable source of information. His demeanor struck an unsettling balance between helpful and detached. He stood on the damp grass near the parking lot, positioning himself right where the cameras could capture his face. The authorities viewed him as a cooperative neighbor, unaware that the architect of the disappearance was standing right in front of them, dictating the story. The catastrophic television interview shifted the entire trajectory of the Macon police investigation. Detectives standing near the perimeter watched Stephen McDaniel collapse into a state of visible panic. His physical reaction to the discovery of human remains contradicted his previous facade of calm cooperation. Lead investigators instructed uniformed officers to isolate the young law student from the media crews. Authorities escorted him to an unmarked police cruiser parked on the sloped asphalt of the complex lot. The shift in focus required rapid legal maneuvering from the Detective Bureau. Investigators drafted a comprehensive search warrant for the ground floor unit belonging to the suspect. A local judge reviewed the affidavit detailing his bizarre media breakdown and granted authorization to breach the residence. Crime scene technicians established a staging area on the narrow concrete walkway separating the 2 apartments. Officers breached the heavy wooden door of his unit, stepping into a space that mirrored the exact layout of the missing woman's home. The interior air felt stale, contrasting with the humid Georgia afternoon outside. Detectives began a grid search of the living room, securing the perimeter to preserve the integrity of any microscopic trace material. The physical search of the suspect's apartment revealed chilling details about the structural security of the building. Technicians cataloging items on the wooden desk discovered an unlabeled brass key. Investigators tested this object against the locking mechanisms of various doors within the historic property. The results exposed a terrifying breach in the safety protocols of the residential community. This piece of metal functioned as a master key, granting unimpeded access to every single unit in the complex. Law enforcement officers documented this discovery, noting the severe vulnerability it created for the unsuspecting residents. The management company kept poor inventory records of these overriding tools. allowing a rogue tenant to possess one without setting off internal alarms. Stephen McDaniel held the power to bypass deadbolts and security chains at his own discretion. He erased the physical boundaries that separated his space from the private sanctuaries of his neighbors. Detectives bagged the brass key in clear plastic, marking it as a critical piece of circumstantial evidence. The team moved deeper into the apartment, scanning the shadowy corners of the bedroom and closet spaces. Every drawer and cabinet underwent strict scrutiny by forensic specialists wearing protective nitrile gloves. The scrutiny of the bedroom closet yielded a piece of cardboard packaging that escalated the gravity of the search. Technicians pulled back a stack of legal textbooks to find the cardboard sleeve for an industrial-strength hacksaw. The receipt attached to the packaging indicated a recent purchase from a local hardware store. The physical tool itself remained missing from the apartment, creating a glaring void in the inventory of the suspect's belongings. Detectives recognized the grim implications of this absent item given the nature of the discovery in the complex trash bins. Crime scene photographers documented the exact positioning of the cardboard sleeve on the wooden closet shelf. Alongside the physical hardware evidence, the search team focused on the technological footprint of the law student. Investigators seized a desktop computer, a digital camera, and various external hard drives found scattered across the living room desk. Chain of custody protocols required officers to seal each electronic device in specialized static-proof bags. A digital forensics team transported the hardware to a secure laboratory located in the downtown municipal building. The extraction of data from these devices required specialized software to bypass the basic passwords set by the suspect. Analysts initiated a sector-by-sector copy of the hard drives to preserve the original data structure. The digital reconstruction exposed a staggering level of psychological intrusion and premeditated stalking. Forensic analysts combing through the recovered video files discovered hours of deleted footage. Stephen McDaniel used his digital camera to record the private activities of Lauren Giddings through her living room window. The timestamp data revealed a chronic pattern of surveillance spanning the weeks leading up to her disappearance. In these recovered files, the camera lens focused on the young woman sitting on her sofa or working at her desk. She remained blind to the predator documenting her life from the shadows of the adjacent walkway. The digital footprint extended beyond vorphilism into a calculated study of human vulnerability. Web browser history on the seized computer showed extensive research into building layouts, lock-picking techniques, and the human decomposition process. The suspect weaponized his academic research skills to study the mechanics of a perfect, untraceable crime. Analysts cross-referenced the dates of these internet searches with the timestamps on the surveillance videos. This chronological alignment painted a picture of an escalating obsession transforming into actionable planning. The digital forensics team compiled a massive dossier of this electronic evidence, printing transcripts and capturing still frames for the lead detectives. This invisible horror documented on silicon chips provided the motive the physical crime scene lacked. Armed with the digital dossier and the cardboard packaging, detectives brought Stephen McDaniel into an austere interrogation room. The physical space consisted of cinder block walls, a heavy metal table, and a single fluorescent light fixture humming overhead. The suspect sat in a rigid upright posture with his hands folded together on his lap. His demeanor in the confined space mirrored the chilling detachment seen in the recovered surveillance footage. For hours at a time, he maintained an unnatural stillness, refusing to adjust his seating position or request a cup of water. Experienced interrogators noted this bizarre physical control as a calculated tactic to project mental superiority. Detectives initiated the questioning using a methodical approach, asking mundane questions to establish a baseline of his communication style. The law student answered in a slow, monotone voice, offering vague timelines of his activities during the final week of June. He constructed a fragile alibi centered around marathon study sessions inside his apartment. The investigators allowed him to build this narrative without interruption, letting him commit to specific times and locations on the permanent audio record. His legal education gave him a false sense of security. Believing he could outmaneuver the working-class detectives sitting across from him, he continued to profess total ignorance regarding the missing master key and the hardware packaging found in his closet. The illusion of his intellectual dominance shattered when the detectives introduced the timeline of his digital activity. Lead investigators placed printed screenshots of the deleted Viveristic videos on the metal table in front of him. The officers pointed to the time-stamped search queries detailing the decomposition process, dismantling his claims of innocent study sessions. The rigid posture of the suspect fractured as the volume of undeniable proof filled the quiet room. Detectives cornered his fabricated alibi, demonstrating the physical impossibility of his statements using the exact hours he logged on his computer. He realized his status as a law student offered zero protection against hard physical timestamps and recovered file directories. The psychological pressure mounted as the interrogators detailed the discovery of the brass key and the hardware receipt. Every attempt the suspect made to redirect the conversation met a wall of documented forensic reality. Law enforcement trapped him in a cage built from his own meticulous electronic records and physical carelessness. He retreated into long stretches of silence, staring at the cinder block wall while the detectives outlined the impending legal consequences. The prolonged standoff drained the final remnants of his arrogant composure. The authorities held him in custody, waiting for the forensic laboratory to process the central piece of the puzzle, still missing from the inventory. The communal laundry room sat on the ground level of the historic apartment complex, 50 feet from the front porch of the suspect. Heavy concrete walls insulated the space from the stifling Georgia heat. Industrial washing machines lined the left side of the room. A series of utility closets occupied the right wall. Detectives secured this communal area and extended crime scene tape across the double doors. A massive search effort directed technicians toward a specific utility closet locked with a heavy brass padlock. Using bolt cutters, officers breached the small storage space. Inside, hidden beneath layers of discarded maintenance supplies, lay the exact industrial tool matching the cardboard packaging found in the suspect unit. The heavy metal saw rested in the shadows. This object functioned as the missing puzzle piece the investigators required. During this same hour, a separate forensic team processed the large industrial refuse bins positioned at the edge of the paved parking lot, deep within the plastic containers. Authorities made the grim discovery of partial remains belonging to the young law student. The physical reality of her permanent end materialized among the household waste of the quiet community. The proximity of the disposal site to her sanctuary highlighted the arrogant confidence of the predator. Investigators documented the location of the tool, securing the perimeter for evidence extraction. The timeline of the final hours tightened around the man living next door. Crime scene technicians transferred the recovered metal tool to the secure state laboratory located in downtown Atlanta. Specialists in protective gear placed the object on a sterile stainless steel examination table. They utilized sterile cotton swabs to collect microscopic trace evidence trapped within the grooves of the metal blade. A forensic biologist extracted cellular material from these swabs and initiated a complex chemical amplification process. The resulting genetic profile required comparison against known reference samples provided by the family of the victim. The laboratory machines generated a sequence of numbers identifying a definitive match to Lauren Giddings. This irrefutable scientific link bypassed all legal arguments and destroyed the remaining fragments of the fabricated alibi. Armed with this laboratory report, lead detectives returned to the cinderblock interrogation room in Macon. The young law student remained seated in his rigid posture at the heavy metal table. The interrogators placed the printed DNA results on the flat surface in front of him. They outlined the exact path of the biological material from the victim to the hidden tool in the laundry room. The officers painted a vivid picture of a premeditated strike executed by a predator hiding in plain sight. They dismantled his mask of scholarly innocence using hard scientific facts. The abstract theories of his legal textbooks offered no defense against physical biology. His calculated silence failed to halt the momentum of the presentation. The walls of his psychological fortress began to crumble under the weight of microscopic reality. The interrogation room grew silent. The suspect stared at the printed laboratory results. His eyes scanned the genetic sequence data. The reality of his situation crystallized in his mind. He possessed a deep understanding of the judicial system. He knew the standard of proof required for a conviction. The prosecution now held a flawless chain of physical and digital evidence. His hidden master key provided the method of entry. His internet search history established the premeditated intent. The deleted camera footage proved the relentless stalking. The cardboard packaging connected him to the instrument of destruction. The genetic match cemented his role in the grim tragedy. His legal education offered zero escape routes. His rigid posture collapsed as the illusion of his intellectual superiority vanished. He recognized the absolute failure of his intricate plan. The authorities placed him under formal arrest, securing heavy steel handcuffs around his wrists. The wheels of the Georgia justice system began a methodical grind toward a final conclusion. The district attorney filed formal charges against Stephen McDaniel, aiming for the maximum penalty allowed by state law. Prosecutors utilized the next 36 months to build an impenetrable case designed to withstand any procedural challenges from the defense team. By the early months of 2014, the legal reality forced the hand of the accused predator. Facing a guaranteed conviction at trial and the looming threat of the death penalty, the former law student sought a negotiated settlement. In April 2014, he stood inside a historic courtroom in Bibb County. He stood before a presiding judge and entered a plea of guilty to the charges. The court accepted this admission of guilt, bypassing the need for an agonizing public trial. The judge handed down a sentence of life in state prison, carrying the possibility of parole after several decades. The structural confines of the state penitentiary replaced the quiet academic environment he once used as a hunting ground. The legal loopholes he studied for years failed to provide him with a sanctuary. The system functioned without error, stripping away the freedom of a man who stole the future of a bright young advocate. His hubris transformed him into a permanent resident of the penal system. The gavel fall closed the legal chapter of the harrowing investigation. The concrete walls of a maximum security facility became his new reality. The acceptance of the plea deal spared the family of Lauren Giddings from the emotional torture of a lengthy public spectacle. Her parents avoided the trauma of viewing the harrowing digital evidence and listening to graphic forensic testimony in open court. The resolution provided a measure of definitive legal closure, though it could never replace the immense light stolen from their lives. Lauren remains remembered as a vibrant force of nature who dedicated her short life to helping the vulnerable. Her legacy lives on in the memories of the community she loved and the fellow students she supported. Her loved ones find solace knowing the neighbor who hid his darkness behind a scholarly facade will spend his days locked inside a concrete cell. The community of Macon began to rebuild its shattered sense of security, altered by the realization that monsters often wear the faces of peers. Law enforcement agencies across the state incorporated the lessons learned from the digital forensic investigation into their training academies. The tragic loss of a promising young woman served as a grim reminder of the predators hiding in ordinary spaces. Yet, the unsettling phenomenon of perpetrators using the media to control a narrative is not isolated to the American South. Across the Atlantic Ocean, another shattered community would face a terrifyingly similar deception. In a quiet English town, the most dangerous person in the room positioned himself right in front of the television cameras. In August 2002, the normally quiet English town of Soham transforms into a media circus as satellite trucks block the narrow lanes. Amidst a frantic community search for two missing 10-year-old girls, a local school caretaker named Ian Huntley voluntarily approaches the television cameras. Clad in a red Manchester United football shirt, he sweats profusely under the glare of the lights, shifting his weight while nervously detailing how he was the last person to speak with the children. His erratic demeanor and bizarre eagerness to control the public narrative immediately set off silent alarm bells for seasoned detectives watching the broadcasts from their incident room. In a desperate bid to appear innocent, a predator steps squarely into the spotlight. The town of Soham, nestled deep within the flat fenlands of Cambridgeshire, represents the kind of rural English enclave where residents rarely lock their front doors. Ancient stone churches cast long shadows over quaint residential streets, and the rhythmic sound of bicycle tires on pavement forms the soundtrack of daily life. Within this tight-knit community, 10-year-old Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman live an idyllic existence. The two girls share an unbreakable bond of friendship that defines their entire world. They spend their summer afternoons exploring the local parks, trading secrets, and laughing beneath the expansive East Anglian sky. Both children are bright, trusting, and cherished by their respective families. Their parents view the town as a safe haven, far removed from the predatory dangers of large cities. On Sunday, August 4th, 2002, the late summer air hangs heavy and warm over the Wells family residence. The girls spend the afternoon laughing at a family barbecue, unaware that their innocent world is about to shatter. They wear matching red Manchester United football shirts, an adorable display of their shared interests. The afternoon sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting an amber glow across the manicured lawns. A profound sense of security permeates the neighborhood, masking the dark reality quietly waiting just down the road. Less than a mile away from the barbecue, the local secondary school stands as a central pillar of the community. The sprawling campus features wide athletic fields bordered by dense hedges, creating a secluded perimeter around the main brick buildings. Tucked neatly within the school grounds is a modest two-story caretaker cottage. This secluded residence is occupied by 28-year-old Ian Huntley, a man entrusted with the keys to the entire educational facility. He secures the locks, maintains the boilers, and walks the empty corridors, projecting the image of a dedicated community servant. He shares the cottage with his girlfriend Maxine Carr, a young woman who had recently worked as a teaching assistant in the exact same primary school class attended by Holly and Jessica. The girls know Maxine well, looking up to her with the innocent admiration students often hold for young educators. Behind the closed doors of the cottage, however, Huntley wears a carefully constructed mask designed to hide a disturbing history. A systemic failure in the background check process of the United Kingdom allows him to work in direct proximity to children. Rigid administrative protocols and fragmented databases prevent authorities from linking his new identity to past behavioral red flags. The very systems designed to protect the vulnerable feature gaping administrative loopholes, granting a predator unrestricted access to a local school. No one in the quiet town suspects that the helpful caretaker harbors dark, controlling compulsions. As the early evening settles over Soham on August 4th, Holly and Jessica decide to take a short walk to purchase sweets. Their destination is a nearby sports center, located just a brief stroll away from the safety of the Wells home. The path takes them down familiar residential roads, illuminated by the initial flickering of sodium streetlights waking up for the night. They walk side by side, their matching red shirts standing out vividly against the gathering dusk. It is a routine errand, the kind of brief excursion children in Soham undertake without a second thought. However, the hands on the clock at the Wells residence continue to tick past the agreed-upon time for their return. A creeping sense of unease begins to replace the relaxed atmosphere of the family barbecue. The parents step outside, calling the girls' names into the darkening street, met only by the chirping of evening insects. The initial assumption of a simple distraction quickly morphs into cold, gripping panic as neighbors confirm they have not seen the children. By 8 o'clock in the evening, family members are frantically driving up and down the local roads, scanning the shadows for any sign of the two friends. The town's perceived safety shatters as the darkness descends, offering no clues to their whereabouts. At exactly 10 o'clock at night, the desperate families officially notify the local constabulary, triggering an immediate and massive law enforcement response. By the following morning, the disappearance of the two best friends dominates every major news outlet across the United Kingdom. Smiling photographs of Holly and Jessica, beaming in their matching football shirts, are plastered across television screens and front pages nationwide. A colossal search operation mobilizes, flooding the quiet lanes of Soham with police officers, tracking dogs, and countless citizen volunteers. Helicopters chop through the sky above the fenlands, while search teams comb through dense agricultural fields and drag local waterways. Amidst this chaotic, heart-wrenching environment, Ian Huntley makes a calculated and fateful decision to insert himself directly into the investigation. He approaches both uniformed officers and eager television crews, offering unsolicited information about the timeline of the previous evening. Standing by his cottage, he claims the girls walked past his residence and stopped to converse with him. He tells a specific, detailed story, stating they asked about his girlfriend Maxine Carr and her recent job application before wandering off toward the library. By voluntarily stepping in front of the cameras, Huntley believes he can manipulate the narrative and project a helpful, cooperative persona. Instead, his aggressive eagerness to speak draws intense scrutiny from highly trained behavioral analysts observing the coverage. Detectives note the subtle inconsistencies in his speech, the rigid body language, and the way he avoids specific questions. His deliberate attempt to control the public perception becomes the crucial turning point, transforming him from a background character into the central focus of a massive criminal investigation. As the first week of the search unfolds, the expansive grounds of the local secondary school become a focal point for law enforcement. Officers in high-visibility jackets line up shoulder to shoulder, sweeping the manicured playing fields and dense boundary hedges yard by yard. The rhythmic thud of police boots on the turf echoes across the normally quiet campus. During this meticulous physical search, Ian Huntley remains a constant looming presence just at the periphery of the police lines. He offers officers cups of tea, attempting to embed himself within the daily operational routines of the investigation. Detectives operating the command center begin to notice his unnatural obsession with the search parameters. He asks specific, calculated questions regarding the exact locations the tracking dogs plan to sweep next. To the untrained eye, he appears as a concerned citizen trying to assist a community in crisis. However, seasoned investigators recognize this behavior as a classic countermeasure employed by individuals desperate to monitor police progress. His relentless hovering creates an unsettling atmosphere, turning the caretaker from a helpful witness into a person of acute interest. The shadow of suspicion lengthens over the modest brick cottage at the edge of the school grounds. The focus on the cottage intensifies when investigators observe strange, compulsive activities taking place in the driveway. Despite the chaotic search surrounding his home, Huntley engages in an intense, uncharacteristic deep cleaning routine. Officers watch him scrub the exterior of his red Ford Fiesta with immense physical force, washing the vehicle multiple times in a single day. the sharp chemical odor of heavy-duty bleach wafts from the open windows of the caretaker residence, overpowering the natural scent of the damp Finland air. Investigators note that he replaces the tires on his vehicle, a highly suspicious action during the middle of a missing persons crisis. He also removes the carpets from the interior of his car, discarding material that could potentially hold microscopic trace evidence. These actions represent a deliberate, calculated effort to erase physical history. Huntley operates under the arrogant delusion that sheer chemical force can scrub away the grim reality of his actions. He believes his status as a trusted school employee provides an invisible shield against serious law enforcement scrutiny. Detectives document every wipe of his sponge and every discarded item, building a silent dossier of his paranoid behavior. The physical environment of the cottage morphs from a quiet sanctuary into an active theater of concealment. To solidify his narrative, Huntley relies heavily on his girlfriend, Maxine Carr, inserting her directly into the path of the investigation. Carr steps in front of the television cameras, holding a photograph of Holly Wells, speaking in the past tense about the children before correcting herself. During formal police interviews, she provides a firm, unwavering alibi for the caretaker. She explicitly tells investigators she spent the entire Sunday evening inside the cottage with Huntley, cooking a roast dinner. She claims the two of them watched television together during the exact hours the young friends vanished from the streets of Soham. This fabricated narrative creates a massive procedural dead end for the detective teams attempting to map the timeline. Standard investigative protocol requires police to clear individuals who possess verified alibi from cohabitants. Her statement stalls the momentum of the inquiry, forcing officers to divert precious resources toward other local suspects and false leads. By lending her credibility as a former teaching assistant, Carr builds a protective fortress around a dangerous predator. The investigation halts within this manufactured maze of domestic normality. Detectives face the frustrating reality of possessing strong behavioral suspicions without the foundational evidence needed to break a corroborated alibi. The protective fortress begins to crumble when detectives initiate a deep dive into telecommunications data. Officers request the billing records and geographical cell tower pings associated with the mobile phones of both Huntley and Carr. The digital footprints reveal a stark, undeniable truth that shatters the domestic alibi. On Sunday, August 4th, the mobile phone belonging to Maxine Carr registered connections to cell towers in Grimsby, a coastal town located over 100 miles away from Soham. Further investigation into witness statements confirms she attended a family gathering in Grimsby during the entire weekend of the disappearance. The roast dinner and the shared evening television programs are entirely fictional constructs. Detectives realize Huntley manipulated Carr through phone calls, convincing her to lie to protect his job security by claiming he was simply avoiding a minor dispute. This digital revelation exposes the massive deception at the heart of the caretaker cottage. The dead end evaporates, leaving a clear, unobstructed path of suspicion leading directly back to the school grounds. Investigators now possess the vital leverage needed to tear away the carefully constructed facade of the helpful community servant. The focus shifts entirely to the lone occupant of the house during those crucial evening hours. Armed with the shattered alibi, the investigation team formally requests background intelligence from neighboring constabularies. A massive systemic failure comes into sharp focus as intelligence officers dig through decentralized filing systems. They discover the caretaker previously lived in Humberside under the name Ian Nixon, a deliberate identity change used to distance himself from a disturbing past. Under this previous name, local authorities had investigated him for multiple behavioral red flags and predatory allegations involving vulnerable women. However, rigid data protection laws and a complete lack of a unified national database prevented Humberside police from sharing these files with Cambridgeshire authorities. when the school ran a standard background check on the name Ian Huntley. The search returned a completely clean record. The strict administrative protocols designed to safeguard personal privacy inadvertently functioned as an impenetrable shield for a dangerous individual. He exploited this specific legal loophole, crossing county lines and altering his name to reset his entire history. Detectives read the incoming files with a growing sense of dread, recognizing the exact profile of a serial predator operating within a trusted environment. The realization that basic, bureaucratic fragmentation placed him in the center of a local school infuriates the law enforcement community. The pieces of the puzzle lock together, transforming circumstantial suspicion into a terrifying certainty. The pressure cooker environment of the investigation reaches a critical threshold during the early hours of August 16th. 12 days after the young friends vanished, a convoy of unmarked police vehicles descends upon the secondary school campus. Officers surround the brick cottage, securing all exits and establishing a hard perimeter to prevent any destruction of evidence. Detectives step through the front door, executing a formal search warrant on the premises and the freshly scrubbed red vehicle. They confront Huntley with the irrefutable evidence of the cell tower records and his hidden history from Humberside. The confident, media-hungry persona collapses under the heavy weight of the undeniable digital facts. Police officially place both Ian Huntley and Maxine Carr under arrest, leading them out of the cottage and into awaiting patrol cars. The physical arrest removes the immediate threat from the community, yet the horrific reality of the missing children remains unresolved. Forensic teams wearing white protective suits flood into the house, tearing up floorboards and applying chemical agents to detect hidden traces. Every square inch of the property undergoes microscopic scrutiny, searching for the physical link the suspect tried so desperately to wash away. The quiet rural enclave braces for the devastating truths hidden within the walls of the Caretaker residence. Approximately 10 miles northeast of the quiet streets of Soham lies the sprawling, isolated woodland of Lakenheath. Dense tree canopies block out the summer sun, casting deep shadows over a network of secluded fenland tracks and ancient agricultural trenches. The area remains untouched by foot traffic, serving as a silent boundary near a massive military airbase. On Saturday, August 17, 2002, the heavy silence of this remote geography breaks. A local gamekeeper walks the overgrown perimeter, conducting his routine checks of the vast estate. His trained eyes scan the dense vegetation, searching for signs of poachers or wildlife disturbances. Instead, he notices a deep secluded ditch filled with an unnatural arrangement of scorched earth and disturbed branches. A pungent chemical odor of burnt material lingers in the stagnant air above the trench. He steps closer, parting the heavy ferns, and makes a devastating discovery hidden within the shadowed depths. He retreats from the tree line, rushing to notify the local authorities of the grim find. Within hours, a fleet of police vehicles descends upon the desolate woodland track. Forensic teams in protective suits secure the deep trench, officially ending the desperate 2-week search. The shattered community of Soham receives the crushing confirmation that their beloved children will not return home. The trusting best friends met a brutal permanent end in the dark. The investigation pivots from a frantic rescue mission into a rigorous forensic reconstruction of the final hours. Detectives piece together the terrifying sequence of events that unfolded behind the closed doors of the Caretaker cottage on that fateful Sunday evening. The suspect used his familiar status and his connection to the young teaching assistant to lure the trusting children inside his residence. Once the front door clicked shut, the trusted community servant unleashed a dark compulsion, stealing their futures within the very school grounds designed to protect them. Operating under the cover of night, he loaded his red vehicle and transported the evidence of his horrific actions across the empty county roads to the isolated Lakenheath trench. In a calculated bid to sever all physical ties to the cottage, he ignited a massive fire within the ditch. He intended the flames to consume the iconic red football shirt and incinerate any microscopic transfer of his own DNA. However, the arrogant predator underestimated the absolute resilience of modern forensic science. The intense heat of the blaze failed to destroy a few crucial microscopic fragments of the red fabric. Forensic scientists extract these surviving threads from the scorched earth, matching the unique material directly to the fibers discovered trapped beneath the floorboards of the cottage. Furthermore, botanists analyze the specific composition of the mud clinging to the undercarriage of the scrubbed vehicle. The unique soil signature of the Lakenheath Trench matches the dirt found on the tires, forming an unbreakable chain of physical evidence. The chemical bleach and the false media performances collapse entirely under the weight of microscopic science. In late 2003, the grand architecture of the Central Criminal Court in London, known as the Old Bailey, hosts the highly anticipated trial. The atmosphere inside the courtroom remains tense and heavy as prosecutors dismantle the fabricated narratives of the disgraced school caretaker. The legal team presents the jury with an impenetrable wall of evidence, showcasing the cell tower data, the matching soil compositions, and the surviving microscopic fibers. Desperate to escape consequence, Ian Huntley constructs a weak defense, claiming the tragic loss of life resulted from a sudden, bizarre accident within the cottage. The jury rejects this absurd narrative, recognizing the calculated destruction of evidence and the aggressive media manipulation as the actions of a guilty predator. The gavel falls, and the judge pronounces him guilty of the ultimate crime against the two innocent friends. The court sentences him to 2 concurrent terms of life imprisonment, mandating a minimum of 40 years behind bars before any possibility of parole. Maxine Carr stands trial alongside him, facing severe legal repercussions for providing the false alibi that crippled the crucial early days of the investigation. The jury convicts her of perverting the course of justice, resulting in a strict 21-month prison sentence. Upon her eventual release, the intense public fury necessitates a new legal identity to ensure her physical safety. The justice system delivers severe penalties, yet no verdict can fill the massive void left in the quiet community of Soham. The families of the 2 young girls must navigate a permanent reality devoid of their bright, joyful presence. The devastating tragedy forces an uncompromising spotlight onto the catastrophic administrative failures of the United Kingdom. The public demands accountability for the specific bureaucratic loopholes that allowed a dangerous individual to secure employment within a trusted educational facility. In response, the government launches a rigorous independent investigation, resulting in sweeping, fundamental changes to national vetting procedures. Authorities dismantle the fragmented filing systems that previously isolated vital police intelligence by county lines. Law enforcement agencies establish a unified national database, forcing every jurisdiction to share behavioral red flags, prior allegations, and alias histories in real time. Schools receive strict new mandates requiring comprehensive, multi-agency background checks for any employee seeking access to vulnerable populations. The strict data protection laws that inadvertently shielded the caretaker undergo immediate revision, prioritizing community safety over the privacy of suspected predators. These profound systemic overhauls ensure that individuals with dark histories can no longer exploit regional boundaries to hide in plain sight. The legacy of the 2 inseparable friends lives on through these protective measures, safeguarding future generations from similar administrative negligence. Yet, the unsettling reality remains that dangerous individuals frequently attempt to manipulate their way out of suspicion by performing for the public. While some predators chase the spotlight in a desperate bid for control, others adopt far stranger tactics when confronted by the media. Years later, another tragic disappearance would feature a primary suspect refusing to show their face to the local news, broadcasting a bizarre, shadowy monologue that would expose a terrifying truth. In February 2020, a local television crew from KKTV arrives in a quiet Colorado Springs neighborhood to interview a woman about her missing 11-year-old stepson. Viewers watching the evening broadcast expect a tearful plea for the safe return of Gannon Stutch. Instead, the stepmother, Leticia Stutch, stands with her back to the camera, hiding her face in the deep shadows of her garage. She refuses to look at the lens, turning her head away to deliver a rambling, defensive monologue. She complains about internet rumors and paints herself as the true victim of unfair public scrutiny. She utters no pleas for the boy, offering only a chilling display of self-preservation that makes her the prime focus of investigators. Nestled at the eastern edge of the Rocky Mountains, the sprawling city of Colorado Springs presents a picturesque facade of suburban tranquility. The winter air in January carries a biting chill, sweeping down from Pikes Peak and settling into the quiet subdivisions of Rawson Ranch. Here rows of identical two-story houses sit packed close together along winding asphalt streets, separated by narrow wooden fences and manicured patches of dormant grass. At the center of one of these quiet blocks lives 11-year-old Gannon Stutch. Gannon possesses an infectious, vibrant energy that commands attention the moment he enters a room. He spends his afternoons immersed in video games, navigating the colorful digital worlds of Sonic the Hedgehog and building elaborate structures in Minecraft. His bright smile and gentle disposition make him a favorite among his teachers and neighborhood friends. He shares a strong, unbreakable bond with his biological parents, Albert and Lanton. Despite their separation, both parents maintain a constant loving presence in his life, ensuring he feels secure. Albert, known as AL, serves in the United States National Guard, bringing a structured, disciplined warmth to his household. Gannon idolizes his father, often waiting by the front window for the familiar sight of Al returning from duty. The boy requires routine medication for a minor health condition, a necessity that grounds his daily schedule in strict predictability. This requirement means he never stays away from home without deliberate planning and open communication. The Stutch household structure changed a few years prior when Al married Leticia, a woman who presented herself as a dedicated educator and supportive partner. Leticia holds a doctorate in education, a credential she leverages to project authority and demand respect from her peers. To the outside observer, the family dynamic appears ordinary, blending the lives of Gannon, his younger sister, and Leticia's teenage daughter from a previous relationship. Leticia drives a rented vehicle, runs daily errands, and maintains the outward appearance of a responsible caretaker. However, beneath this curated suburban mask, deep psychological fractures threaten the stability of the home. Neighbors fail to notice anything alarming, yet a rigid tension defines the interactions inside the house. Leticia struggles with profound insecurities, demanding endless validation and exhibiting a hyper-focus on her public image. She resents the close emotional bond between Al and his children, viewing their affection as a direct threat to her own status. Her behavior fluctuates between superficial charm and sudden, irrational outbursts over minor inconveniences. Al attempts to manage these episodes, prioritizing a peaceful environment for the sake of his son and daughter. He trusts Leticia to fulfill her role as a stepmother, relying on her professional background as proof of her competence. The children adapt to her unpredictable moods, learning to navigate the tense atmosphere by retreating to their bedrooms when she becomes agitated. No one suspects the depths of her malice. They assume her difficult personality stems from ordinary stress rather than an innate capacity for destruction. The rigid routine of the Stutch home faces a major disruption in late January 2020. Al receives orders for a brief National Guard deployment, requiring him to leave Colorado Springs and travel out of state. His departure transfers the sole responsibility of the household to Leticia. The physical layout of their home places Gannon in a vulnerable position. His bedroom sits in the finished basement of the house, a secluded space separated from the main living areas and the master suite on the upper floors. The basement features a small window near the ceiling, offering a narrow view of the concrete window well outside. A single wooden door connects the basement stairs to the kitchen, creating an acoustic barrier that isolates the lower level from the rest of the house. Gannon spends the weekend before his father departs playing games in this basement sanctuary, unaware of the shifting dynamic upstairs. Al packs his military gear, giving his son a final embrace before driving away to the airport. The heavy silence of the Colorado winter descends upon the neighborhood, wrapping the house in an isolating chill. Lacia assumes absolute control of the environment, free from the watchful eyes of her husband. The temperature outside drops below freezing, keeping neighbors inside their homes and leaving the streets of Lauren Ranch deserted. Inside the split-level house, the delicate barrier between Leticia's fragile ego and her simmering resentment begins to crack. The illusion of a peaceful suburban home shatters on the evening of January 27, 2020. At 6:55 in the evening, Leticia dials 911 to report Gannon as a runaway. The emergency dispatcher fields her call, listening as she claims the 11-year-old boy left the house between 3 and 4 in the afternoon to visit an unnamed friend. Leticia states she told him to be home before dark, but he never returned. The El Paso County Sheriff Office dispatches deputies to the residence to initiate a standard missing child protocol. The moment patrol cars pull into the driveway, seasoned officers begin identifying massive logical flaws in her narrative. The sun sets early in the Colorado winter, dropping the outside temperature into the single digits. Ice coats the sidewalks, and a bitter wind whips through the open spaces of the subdivision. No child of Gannon's age could survive an extended period outdoors in these harsh elements without thick winter clothing. Furthermore, investigators discover that Gannon left behind his essential daily medication, his mobile phone, and his winter coat. Children running away from home gather vital possessions, pack warm clothes, and seek immediate shelter with close friends. The complete absence of these preparations forces detectives to discard the runaway hypothesis. They recognize the signs of a sinister reality. They shift their focus from a simple search mission to a complex criminal investigation. A massive mobilization of law enforcement and community volunteers begins at daybreak on January 28th. Search and rescue teams comb the surrounding fields, checking storm drains, empty lots, and nearby parks with specialized tracking dogs. As the community rallies in a desperate effort to find the boy, investigators sit down with Leticia to establish a concrete timeline of events. During these initial interviews, her narrative begins to fracture under the weight of basic scrutiny. She alters the timeline of Gannon's departure multiple times, changing the hour he left the house and contradicting her own previous statements. Detectives ask for the name and address of the friend Gannon went to visit, but Leticia provides vague, inconsistent answers. She claims she searched the neighborhood in her rented vehicle before calling authorities, yet cannot describe her specific route. When pressed about Gannon's demeanor that afternoon, she introduces bizarre, unrelated complaints about his behavior, attempting to paint him as difficult and disobedient. Investigators note her distinct lack of emotional distress. She sheds no tears and expresses zero genuine concern for the boy freezing out in the elements. Instead, she fixates on how the police presence disrupts her daily schedule and inconveniences her life. This staggering lack of empathy alerts seasoned detectives to a profound deception. They assign plainclothes officers to monitor her movements. They realize the greatest threat to Gannon did not come from a stranger on the street, but from the woman sitting across the interview table. The final confirmation of her deception arrives just days into the search. playing out on television screens across the entire state. A reporter from local news station KKTV approaches Latia for an interview, offering her a prime opportunity to plead for community assistance. Investigators watch the broadcast in their precinct, expecting a calculated performance of a grieving mother. Instead, they witness a bizarre defensive spectacle that alienates the entire community. Letitia stands inside her shadowy garage, turning her back to the camera lens to obscure her face. She speaks in a rapid, agitated tone, delivering a staggering monologue focused on herself. She complains about receiving negative comments on social media and defends her parenting skills. She complains that neighbors are gossiping about her, framing herself as the ultimate victim of a cruel public smear campaign. Throughout the recorded segment, she fails to mention Gannon's well-being, never once looking into the camera to ask the public to bring him home. This unnatural, self-centered display sends shockwaves through the viewing audience, generating hundreds of tips from citizens pointing directly at her. Law enforcement leverages this monumental public relations disaster, using her own words to justify securing a search warrant for the property. The stepmother's desperate attempt to control the narrative strips away her suburban disguise. The investigative spotlight now locks onto Leticia Stosh, setting the stage for a meticulous forensic examination of her home. Before investigators breach the front door of the Swatch residence, they direct their attention to the architecture of the surrounding block. Straight across the asphalt street from Leticia's driveway sits a neighbor's two-story house equipped with a high-definition residential security camera. This digital eye possesses an unobstructed elevated view of the Swatch property, capturing every vehicle arriving or departing the garage area. Detectives secure the digital hard drive from the neighbor and begin a grueling, second-by-second review of the recording from the morning of January 27th. The timestamp on the screen reads 10:13 in the morning, establishing an undeniable anchor in the shifting narrative. On the monitor, investigators watch a rented red pickup truck reverse out of the driveway into the cold morning light. Leticia sits in the driver's seat, steering the large vehicle with practiced ease on the passenger side. Young Gannon climbs into the cab, moving with visible lethargy and appearing unwell. The heavy doors shut with a metallic thud, and the truck rolls out of the camera frame, heading toward the main thoroughfare of the subdivision. Detectives fast-forward the recording, keeping their eyes locked on the empty driveway. At 20:19 in the afternoon, the red pickup truck returns to the frame, pulling back into the Stosh garage. Letia emerges from the driver's side alone. The passenger side door remains shut. Gannon does not exit the vehicle, nor does he appear in any subsequent frames of the surveillance recording. This digital evidence shatters the fabricated runaway timeline, proving the stepmother lied about the boy leaving on foot later that afternoon. Armed with the undeniable contradiction from the security footage, law enforcement secures a comprehensive search warrant for the entire Stosh property. A specialized team of forensic technicians arrives at the house in protective gear, carrying heavy equipment cases and high-intensity lighting rigs. They step through the front door, moving past the pristine living room and kitchen areas on the main floor. The architecture of the home dictates their path, leading them to a narrow carpeted staircase descending into the lower level. This basement serves as a subterranean enclosure, separated from the upper floors by a heavy wooden door that suffocates acoustic travel. At the bottom of the stairs, a short hallway leads straight into Gannon's bedroom, a small space with minimal natural light. Technicians detect the overwhelming chemical odor of industrial cleaning agents masking the stagnant air of the lower level. They begin a systematic grid search of the room, noting the distinct absence of normal adolescent clutter on the floor. The mattress lies bare, stripped of all sheets, blankets, and pillows. A large section of the carpet near the bed appears damp and warped, showing the unmistakable signs of a desperate, heavy-handed scrubbing attempt. Investigators observe deep indentations in the drywall beside the bed, suggesting a chaotic struggle within the confined space. The sheer volume of cleaning supplies gathered in the adjacent bathroom indicates an orchestrated effort to erase a catastrophic event. The physical alterations to the room prompt the forensic technicians to deploy advanced chemical testing across the floorboards and walls. They seal the basement windows, plunging the subterranean space into absolute darkness before spraying a specialized luminescent compound over the carpet. When the technicians activate their ultraviolet light sources, the room illuminates with a horrifying glowing luminescence. The chemical reaction reveals a massive concentrated area of biological fluid staining the carpet fibers right beside the bare mattress. Splatter patterns stretch across the adjacent drywall, glowing bright blue against the dark paint and outlining a chaotic trajectory. The sheer volume of the unseen fluid soaking deep into the carpet potting tells a grim story of extreme physical trauma. No child could sustain such a massive loss of vital fluids and survive without emergency medical intervention. Technicians document the glowing patterns, photographing every angle to preserve the spatial reality of the concealed horror. They locate small, distinct droplets trailing out of the bedroom, moving down the short hallway toward the basement exit. This trail indicates someone dragged a heavy, saturated object away from the primary scene and up the wooden stairs. The undeniable forensic evidence forces investigators to confront a devastating reality regarding the missing 11-year-old boy. The basement bedroom was not the starting point of a runaway attempt. The child met a brutal, permanent end within the walls of his own sanctuary. As the forensic net tightens around her, Leticia attempts to derail the investigation by introducing a complex fabricated dead-end lead. Sitting inside the police precinct interrogation room, she changes her narrative, abandoning the runaway story to weave a dramatic tale of a home invasion. She claims a mysterious man named Eduardo bypassed the exterior locks, entered the home in broad daylight, and physically assaulted her. According to this new testimony, Eduardo overpowered her in the living room before descending into the basement and taking Gannon away against his will. Detectives recognize this as a classic diversionary tactic. Yet procedural mandates require them to exhaust every presented lead. They pull neighborhood security feeds from the entire surrounding area, scanning for any unrecognized vehicles or individuals walking the streets. They analyze the Stotch home electronic security system, verifying that no door or window sensors tripped during the alleged time frame. In addition, physical examinations of Leticia reveal 0 defensive wounds, no bruising, and no indications of a violent struggle with an intruder. Investigators cross-reference local databases for any individuals matching her vague description, wasting valuable hours tracking down innocent men. Every single data point contradicts her elaborate story, proving the phantom intruder never existed. The Eduardo narrative serves only as a desperate smokescreen, a calculated attempt by the stepmother to shift blame onto an invisible enemy. Realizing law enforcement has dismantled her final alibi, Leticia initiates a calculated exit strategy to escape the jurisdiction of Colorado authorities. She packs her belongings, abandons the house in Lawson Ranch, and rents a large passenger van under her own name. The physical distance between the snowy peaks of Colorado and the southeastern coast of the United States spans over 9,500 miles of interstate highway. Leticia points the vehicle east, embarking on a massive cross-country journey while the local community continues to search the frozen fields for her stepson. Investigators detect her flight risk, securing federal warrants to track the digital footprint of her mobile device and financial transactions. They map her progress across state lines, monitoring a trail of credit card swipes at remote gas stations and highway motels. Her route cuts through the vast plains of the Midwest, dipping south toward the warmer climates of the Atlantic coast. Detectives allow her to continue driving, using the time to finalize the overwhelming forensic reports detailing the biological evidence found in the basement. They coordinate with federal marshals and local agencies along her travel path, ensuring a seamless net of surveillance tracks her every movement. Laetitia believes she has outsmarted the massive investigative machine, driving further away from the crime scene with immense arrogance. She remains unaware that digital trackers ping her exact location to command centers back in El Paso County. The cross-country pursuit concludes in early March in the bustling coastal city of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The geography shifts from the freezing mountain altitudes of Colorado to the humid, flat expanse of the Atlantic seaboard. Laetitia navigates her rental van through the tourist-heavy streets surrounded by neon signs, oceanfront hotels, and swaying palm trees. South Carolina local law enforcement receives the definitive signal from federal agents authorizing them to intercept the vehicle on a busy commercial avenue. Marked patrol cars swarm the street, activating emergency lights and blocking the passenger van from all possible escape routes. Armed officers approach the driver's side door, ordering Laetitia to step out of the vehicle and place her hands behind her back. The loud clack of metal handcuffs echoes in the humid air. Ending her desperate flight across the country, authorities transport her to a local holding facility, placing her in a bleak cinderblock interrogation room devoid of any comforts. Even in custody, stripped of her suburban facade and her freedom, Laetitia maintains a chilling veil of arrogance. She continues to lie to the interviewing detectives, attempting to manipulate the conversation and demanding special treatment. She refuses to acknowledge the overwhelming forensic evidence gathered from the basement, clinging to her fabricated narratives with iron stubbornness. Her unwavering deception forces investigators to rely solely on the physical evidence to locate the missing boy. Pace, Florida sits in the humid panhandle of the southeastern United States. Interstate 10 stretches across the coastal plains, acting as a massive concrete artery for interstate commerce. Concrete bridges span the width of the Escambia River. The water runs dark and murky through the thick vegetation. High above, heavy commercial trucks roar past in a continuous stream of traffic below. Absolute stillness reigns over the swamp. On March 17, 2020, a structural inspector arrives at the overpass. He parks his utility truck on the gravel shoulder. He descends the steep, sandy embankment toward the water. The air feels heavy with humidity and swamp rot. He checks the massive concrete pylon supporting the highway. He notes structural wear and tear on his clipboard. His eyes catch a glaring anomaly near the muddy waterline. A large piece of luggage rests in the damp dirt. It sits completely out of place in the desolate environment. The suitcase is covered in mud and river debris. The inspector approaches the object to investigate. A sickening, distinct odor halts his steps. He recognizes the universal scent of decay drifting in the humid air. He retreats up the steep embankment to the safety of the highway. He dials emergency services to report the suspicious item. Santa Rosa County deputies respond rapidly to the desolate stretch of highway. They descend the sandy slope with extreme caution. They establish a secure perimeter in the thick swamp brush. Forensic technicians arrive in heavy protective gear. They approach the abandoned luggage with specialized tools. They break the heavy zipper seals. They open the case. The authorities make a devastating confirmation. Inside lies the physical form of 11-year-old Gannon Stush. The desperate cross-country search reaches a heartbreaking, final conclusion. This grim discovery completely shatters the complex web of lies spun by the stepmother. The geography of the crime scene reveals a massive calculated effort to evade justice. Pace. Florida sits over 19,300 miles away from the quiet basement in Colorado Springs. Investigators piece together her exact travel route using digital tolls and fuel receipts. Laetitia drove a rented passenger van across multiple state lines with the boy concealed in the back. She navigated through the expansive highways of Texas and Louisiana. She chose this remote highway overpass specifically to discard the luggage. She believed the dark waters of the Escambia River would swallow the physical evidence forever. She failed to account for the routine diligence of state infrastructure workers. The physical recovery provides undeniable proof of her absolute malice. The phantom intruder narrative instantly collapses under the weight of geographical reality. Law enforcement holds the definitive physical proof required to secure maximum legal charges against her. The wheels of justice turn slowly through the rigid legal system. Extradition protocols and bureaucratic delays keep the grieving community waiting for answers. Leticia Stotch finally faces trial in May 2023. The proceedings take place inside a sterile, high-security courtroom in El Paso County. The defense mounts a desperate legal strategy to avoid accountability. Her attorneys claim she suffered from a severe dissociative psychological break. They attempt to use the complex legal loophole of criminal insanity to shield her from a definitive prison sentence. The prosecution launches a meticulous counterattack against this theory. They present the undeniable digital footprint of her calculated cross-country flight. They showcase the violent cleanup effort executed in the basement. They highlight her arrogant, self-serving lies to the television news crew. These specific actions demonstrate a high level of cognitive planning and environmental awareness. A person experiencing a genuine break from reality does not execute a 1,500-mile evasion strategy. The state systematically destroys the psychological defense theory in front of the jury. The jury deliberates the overwhelming mountain of forensic and digital evidence. They return to the courtroom with absolute clarity regarding the facts of the case. The jury foreperson reads the definitive verdict into the permanent legal record. They find Leticia guilty on all counts, including the highest degree of intentional harm. The judge addresses the arrogant predator standing before the bench. He delivers a permanent sentence of life in a state penitentiary without the possibility of parole. Leticia shows zero remorse, maintaining her stubborn facade until armed deputies lead her away in heavy chains. The conclusion of the trial shifts the focus back to the true victim. Albert and Lyndon approach the podium to deliver their victim impact statements. The grieving parents refuse to let a cruel predator define the legacy of their son. They speak of his bright smile and his immense love for video games. They ensure the court remembers his vibrant spirit instead of his tragic final hours. The heavy gavel strike brings ultimate closure to the Colorado Springs community. The rigid sentencing structure guarantees the stepmother will never walk free to harm another child. His memory lives on through local memorials and the enduring, unbreakable love of his parents. The legal system successfully neutralized a predator hiding behind a mask of suburban normalcy. This exhaustive investigation proved that physical evidence always outlasts manipulative lies. Detectives relied on security cameras and forensic science to break the deceptive facade. However, the phenomenon of a primary caretaker turning against their own family is not an isolated incident. Sometimes the most shocking clues emerge not from a hidden basement, but directly from the mouth of a smiling parent on daytime television. Just 1 month after Gannon disappeared, another frantic search begins in a rural Tennessee town, where a young mother's bizarre broadcast behavior leaves investigators utterly speechless. February 2020. A local news crew from television station WJHL sets up their cameras outside a courthouse in Sullivan County, Tennessee. The reporter aims the microphone at 21-year-old Megan Boswell, asking about her missing 15-month-old daughter, Evelyn. Instead of pleading for her baby's safe return with tear-streaked cheeks, Megan smiles. She adjusts her hair, looks directly into the lens, and speaks in a casual, upbeat cadence. She claims she knows exactly who has her child. She claims she is secretly negotiating with them. She even laughs lightly, casually deflecting the blame onto her own mother. Viewers at home stare at their screens in absolute disbelief. This astonishingly flippant television interview instantly cements Megan as a prime suspect in the vanishing of her own flesh and blood. Tucked away in the northeastern corner of Tennessee lies Sullivan County, a quiet stretch of the Appalachian Highlands. The landscape is defined by rolling green hills, dense patches of deciduous forests, and long, winding two-lane roads lined with weather-beaten farmhouses. Snowthium streetlights cast a dim orange glow over small rural neighborhoods where the heavy, humid air buzzes with the deafening hum of cicadas throughout the summer months. It is the kind of close-knit community where generational roots run deep, and neighbors quickly notice when a familiar face vanishes from the front porch. Into this quiet southern enclave, Evelyn Boswell was born. By late 2019, Evelyn was a vibrant, 15-month-old toddler. She possessed bright blonde hair, striking blue eyes, and an infectious, joyful demeanor that captivated anyone who crossed her path. Her early days were spent in a world of contrasting realities. Extended family members, particularly her grandfather and a rotating cast of trusted babysitters, poured immense affection into the little girl. They provided a semblance of routine, reading her stories, feeding her snacks, and ensuring she felt cherished. Evelyn loved playing with her toys on the carpeted floors of her relatives' homes. She was an innocent, happy child navigating a deeply complex adult world. The stability provided by her extended family stood in stark contrast to the chaotic reality created by her mother, 21-year-old Megan Boswell. Megan lived a highly transient lifestyle, bouncing between unstable living arrangements, cramped apartments, and rural properties across the county. She navigated a turbulent web of family dysfunction, frequently clashing with her own mother, Angela Boswell, over finances and custody arrangements. Yet, to the outside world peering through the digital window of social media, Megan projected a vastly different narrative. She carefully curated an online persona of a doting, affluent mother living a picture-perfect life. Her social media feeds were filled with staged photographs, high-end clothing brands, and boastful captions suggesting wealth and endless maternal devotion. She posted images of Evelyn dressed in pristine outfits, carefully cropped to hide the disarray of the rooms behind them. This digital facade served as a protective mask, hiding a frantic daily existence marked by financial desperation and neglected responsibilities. Behind closed doors, Evelyn was frequently passed from one caregiver to the next with little notice or planning. The babysitters and family members who took Evelyn in often noticed that Megan would disappear for days at a time, offering vague excuses upon her return. This deep contradiction between the smiling, wealthy mother on the internet and the erratic, absent parent in reality formed the psychological backdrop of the impending tragedy. The fragile illusion of Megan Boswell's carefully constructed life shattered entirely in the middle of February 2020. The catalyst came not from a dramatic public event, but from a deeply troubling phone call placed to the Tennessee Department of Children's Services. Evelyn's grandfather, Tommy Boswell Sr., reached out to state workers with a chilling realization. He explained that despite his continuous efforts to check on his granddaughter, no one in the family had laid eyes on the 15-month-old toddler since the middle of December 2019. A terrifying gap of roughly 8 weeks had already passed without a single confirmed sighting of the child. Recognizing the severe implications of this massive delay, caseworkers immediately contacted the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office. Deputies were dispatched to track down Megan, locating her at a local residence to demand proof of the child's well-being. When confronted by uniformed officers, Megan did not exhibit the frantic urgency typical of a mother separated from her baby. Instead, she offered a series of evasive, contradictory answers. She claimed Evelyn was safely staying with various distant relatives, then quickly changed her story to say the toddler was with a trusted babysitter whose address she mysteriously could not remember. The officers pressed harder, requesting phone numbers and exact locations. But Megan only produced more convoluted excuses. It became glaringly obvious to law enforcement that the young mother was actively concealing the truth about the little girl's whereabouts. On February 18, 2020, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation officially issued a statewide Amber Alert. The notification flashed across highway signs, interrupted television broadcasts, and lit up cell phones across the entire state. A frantic, highly publicized search operation commenced for a child who had already been missing for over 2 months. Investigators immediately faced a monumental investigative hurdle, as the trail had grown entirely cold during that undocumented 8-week window. The community rallied, organizing search parties and distributing flyers with Evelyn's smiling face across storefronts in Blounteville and Bristol. It was during this critical period of public mobilization that Megan embarked on a bizarre and unprecedented media tour. Rather than cooperating with detectives in private interrogation rooms, she sought out local news cameras. She spun wild, unverified tales on live television, alleging that her own mother, Angela Boswell, had kidnapped the child and taken her to a campground in Virginia. In subsequent interviews, she escalated her claims, suggesting a complex extortion plot involving mysterious individuals who would harm Evelyn if Megan went to the police. Every time she spoke to a reporter, the timeline shifted. The villains changed, and the locations moved. These public performances completely drained law enforcement resources, forcing detectives to chase down phantom leads generated by the very person who was supposed to be the grieving mother. Law enforcement officers mobilized to investigate the specific locations provided by Megan during her chaotic television interviews. The first major tip directed deputies across the state line to a rural campground situated in Mendota, Virginia. Mendota sits 25 miles north of Sullivan County, nestled within the dense timberlands of the Appalachian Mountains. The drive requires navigating narrow, winding dirt roads that cut through steep ravines and thick brush. Sullivan County detectives coordinated with Virginia authorities to execute a massive ground search of the designated campsites. Search and rescue teams deployed tracking dogs to comb through the freezing mud and overgrown hiking trails. Troopers knocked on the doors of dilapidated recreational vehicles parked beneath the towering pine trees. Officers inspected abandoned cabins, searching for any trace of toddler clothing or discarded diapers. Hours turned into agonizing days of systematic grid searches across the freezing terrain. The search dogs yielded 0 alerts. The physical sweep of the campground produced no evidence of Evelyn. Detectives realized they were chasing a ghost manufactured by a mother seeking to divert police attention. Investigators confronted Megan with the empty results from the Virginia campground. She showed 0 hesitation, discarded her previous story, and constructed a new narrative. She insisted her mother, Angela Boswell, had taken the toddler in a stolen silver 2007 BMW Sienna. This specific vehicle description triggered a multi-state alert system for the missing car. The BMW lead sparked a surge of action within the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation Command Center. Dispatchers entered the license plate and vehicle description into the National Crime Information Center database. On February 21, 2020, a patrol unit in Wilkes County, North Carolina, spotted the suspect vehicle. Wilkes County is located over 100 miles east of the Sullivan County jurisdiction. North Carolina deputies executed a high-risk traffic stop on the silver sedan along a rural 2-lane highway. Officers drew their service weapons, approached the vehicle, and commanded the occupants to exit with their hands raised. They pulled Angela Boswell and her boyfriend, William McLeod, from the front seats of the car. Officers secured both individuals in handcuffs and placed them in the back of marked patrol cruisers. Troopers then conducted a meticulous search of the vehicle interior, checking the back seats, the floorboards, and the trunk. They found scattered trash, personal belongings, and standard travel items, but no sign of a 15-month-old child. Detectives transported Angela to the local precinct for an intense interrogation regarding her missing granddaughter. Angela sat in the barren interview room and maintained steadfast denial of any involvement in the disappearance. She told investigators she had not seen the baby since December and held no knowledge of the location of the child. The North Carolina authorities arrested Angela and William on fugitive warrants for the stolen vehicle. The promising lead transformed into another frustrating dead end, leaving investigators back at the starting line. The failure of the North Carolina lead forced detectives to turn their full focus back onto Megan. Investigators scheduled a polygraph test for the young mother at the local sheriff office. The polygraph protocol requires subjects to sit still in a controlled environment while sensors measure physiological responses. Prior to the test, technicians review a standard medical questionnaire to ensure accurate baseline readings. Megan walked into the testing facility and dropped a new calculated obstacle into the path of the investigation. She informed the polygraph examiner she carried a child. Department regulations prohibit the administration of a lie detector test to expectant mothers due to potential health risks and erratic physical responses. The examiner packed the equipment, and the interview terminated without a single question asked. Detectives refused to accept this convenient excuse at face value. They obtained a search warrant for the private medical records of Megan from the regional hospital and her listed primary care physician. The subsequent review of the official health documents exposed the depths of her deception. The medical files showed no evidence of a prenatal visit, no positive pregnancy tests, and no prescribed prenatal vitamins. Megan had fabricated a phantom child to shield herself from answering direct questions about her missing daughter. This staggering lie confirmed to law enforcement that she possessed a chilling capacity for manipulation. The relentless barrage of fabrications created an unprecedented strain on the Sullivan County Sheriff Office. Detectives logged hundreds of overtime hours chasing down fictitious leads manufactured by the primary suspect. Every false statement required officers to draft new warrants, deploy search teams, and coordinate with neighboring jurisdictions. The command staff recognized they needed to stop the hemorrhaging of investigative resources. On February 25, 2020, uniformed deputies located Megan and placed her in handcuffs. The district attorney charged her with one count of filing a false police report, citing the specific lies told during the initial well air check. Officers transported her in the back of a squad car to the Sullivan County Jail. The heavy steel doors slammed shut behind her, isolating her from the news cameras she utilized as a shield. A judge set her bond at $25,000, ensuring she remained confined within the concrete walls of the detention center. Removing Megan from the public sphere allowed the investigation to undergo a monumental shift in strategy. Detectives ceased listening to spoken statements and turned their attention toward silent, unalterable digital footprints. They subpoenaed telecommunication companies to obtain massive tries of cellular data spanning the previous 3 months. Analysts sat in windowless rooms comparing call logs against bank transactions and social media location tags. The investigation transitioned from a frantic rescue mission into a methodical historical reconstruction. The forensic analysts pored over the complex grid of cellular tower pings originating from the phone of Megan during December 2019. The data revealed a stark contrast between her public claims and her actual physical movements. While she told reporters she traveled out of state, her device registered connections to local towers in Blounteville, Tennessee. The digital breadcrumbs formed a tight cluster around a specific rural location on Muddy Creek Road. This precise geographic coordinate corresponded to a sprawling property owned by Tommy Boswell Sr., the grandfather of Evelyn. The Muddy Creek Road property sits on a sloped patch of land surrounded by dense brush and rusted wire fencing. The main house overlooks an unpaved gravel driveway filled with deep, waterlogged potholes. At the rear of the parcel, a distance of 50 yards from the back porch, stands a collection of dilapidated outbuildings. One specific structure caught the attention of the lead investigators mapping the terrain. A weathered tin shed with peeling pate and a rusted, corrugated roof set, isolated near the wood line. Detectives reviewed witness statements, confirming Megan possessed unrestricted access to this specific location during the exact time frame of the disappearance of Evelyn. The timeline of bank card swipes at local convenience stores matched the periods her phone lingered near the tin shed. Armed with this undeniable pattern of circumstantial evidence, the district attorney approved a comprehensive search warrant for the family land. Specialized forensic units gathered their heavy equipment and prepared to breach the perimeter of the Muddy Creek Road property. March 2020, a convoy of official vehicles approaches the Blountville location. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation Mobile Crime Lab pulls onto the gravel driveway of the Muddy Creek Road property. Detectives step out of their cruisers into the crisp March air. The sprawling parcel of land stretches out before them in a tangled mess of rural decay. The main farmhouse sits 50 yards away from the edge of the dense tree line. A rusted wire fence borders the strict perimeter of the backyard. Deep, overgrown grass conceals discarded auto parts and forgotten machinery. A weathered tin shed stands entirely isolated near the edge of the dark woods. Uniformed deputies establish a wide, secure perimeter around the outbuilding. Yellow crime scene tape wraps tightly around the rusted fence posts. Forensic teams don their white protective suits. They approach the heavy wooden doors of the tin shed. Heavy metallic bolt cutters snap the rusted padlock in half. The corrugated metal door groans open, thick dust dances in the sudden shafts of morning sunlight. The interior space presents a chaotic labyrinth of discarded debris. Old tires stack against the splintered wooden walls. Broken furniture leans over piles of damp cardboard boxes. The air smells stale and heavy with moisture. Detectives methodically clear the massive pile of junk. They move forward piece by piece. Crime scene photographers document every single item with high-resolution digital cameras. Bright white flash booths illuminate the darkest corners of the structure. Investigators spend hours working in a tense, methodical silence. They reach the back left corner of the shed. They pull away a heavy canvas tarp. A standard plastic household trash can sit hidden in the deep shadows. The lead crime scene technician steps forward. He carefully lifts the heavy plastic lid. He peers inside the dark cylindrical cavity. He makes a deeply grim, permanent discovery. Blankets and soiled clothing fill the top layer of the plastic container. The technician carefully shifts the heavy fabric aside. The remains of a small child rest at the very bottom. The frantic statewide search for Evelyn Boswell officially ends in the cold darkness of a rusted shed. The command staff immediately locks down the entire property. Medical examiners arrive at the scene to carefully transport the remains to the Regional Forensic Center. Extensive dental records and complex DNA analysis confirm the devastating reality. The remains belong to the missing 15-month-old toddler. The subsequent autopsy timeline delivers a chilling psychological revelation. The forensic pathologist determines the toddler met a brutal, permanent end months prior to the initial February welfare check. She passed away long before the television news crews ever arrived in Sullivan County. The entire public spectacles was a meticulously calculated ruse. Megan knew her child was deceased while smiling directly into the broadcast lenses. She manufactured elaborate kidnapping plots while her daughter sat discarded 50 yards from the family porch. The missing persons case definitively transforms into a full-scale homicide investigation. The labyrinth of lies completely collapses under the crushing weight of physical evidence. The discovery of the child sends absolute shockwaves through the local justice system. A grand jury convenes to review the overwhelming mountain of circumstantial and forensic evidence. The district attorney presents the meticulous timeline of digital cell phone pings. Prosecutors showcase the endless string of false statements provided to the local news stations. The jury issues a sweeping, devastating indictment against Megan Boswell. Authorities charge her with 19 separate felony counts. The comprehensive list of offenses includes aggravated child abuse, tampering with vital evidence, and the most severe degree of intentional homicide. The prosecution outlines how she systematically abused her position of absolute maternal trust. She completely isolated the vulnerable toddler from protective family members. She failed to shield the child from fatal harm. She then utilized her chaotic family dynamics as a smokescreen to conceal the horrific outcome. Megan remains locked securely inside the Sullivan County Detention Center. She awaits her day in a court of law. The wheels of the justice system begin to grind forward at an agonizingly slow pace. The legal proceedings face severe administrative delays. Defense attorneys file numerous complex motions to suppress the initial police interviews. Judges spend countless hours reviewing massive volumes of case law to issue their rulings. The global health crisis of 2020 forces the courthouse to shut its doors. Prosecutors use this extended delay to meticulously prepare their visual presentations. In February 2025, Megan stands trial inside a heavily guarded courtroom. The prosecution delivers a methodical, chronological presentation of the verified facts. They dismantle every single lie told during the 8-week cover-up. They expose the sheer arrogance of a parent who believed she could outsmart seasoned detectives. The 12 members of the jury deliberate for a remarkably brief period. They return to the courtroom with a definitive, uncompromising answer. The foreperson reads the historic verdict aloud for the official record. The jury finds Megan guilty on all 19 charges. In September 2025, the judge convenes the final sentencing hearing. The gavel falls with a heavy final crack. The court hands down a staggering sentence of life in prison. The judge adds an additional 33 years to ensure she never breathes free air again. The immense maternal betrayal concludes with total permanent institutional isolation. The community of Blantville finally finds a measure of closure. Permanent memorials for the joyful blonde toddler replace the frantic missing person flyers. The rusted tin shed on Muddy Creek Road stands as a dark monument to a broken system of trust. Law enforcement professionals secure a permanent absolute victory for a voiceless victim. A deceptive parent completely failed to outsmart the meticulous dedication of modern forensic analysts. The arrogant belief that a criminal can control the narrative completely unraveled in the face of unyielding digital evidence. Yet this chilling phenomenon of parental deception extends far beyond the borders of eastern Tennessee. Other dangerous predators hide behind the exact same mask of a grieving, desperate caretaker. Hundreds of miles away, another set of parents would attempt an eerily similar public performance. On a cold April morning in Illinois, another couple stands before the cameras masking a profound evil originating from inside their own home. On April 18, 2019, Andrew Frown Sr. and Joanne Cunningham stand shoulder to shoulder on the front lawn of their Crystal Lake home, facing a cluster of local news cameras. They are publicly begging for the safe return of their missing 5-year-old son. Joanne stares blankly at the lenses, her face an absolute void of genuine emotion, while Andrew delivers a forced, dramatic plea that rings hollow to the seasoned detectives watching from the perimeter. Their detached performance mirrors a similarly bizarre 911 call placed just hours earlier. This unconvincing theatrical display flashes a blaring warning sign to law enforcement, signaling that the true danger to the boy originated from within the very walls behind them. Crystal Lake, Illinois, sits roughly 45 miles northwest of downtown Chicago. It is a picturesque suburban community characterized by quiet residential streets, well-kept lawns, and a historic downtown district. Among these typical middle-class neighborhoods, a single house on Dole Avenue stands in stark contrast to its surroundings. The exterior features peeling paint, neglected landscaping, and cracked pavement, projecting an aura of decay that bleeds into the property. Inside this decaying structure lives a bright, affectionate 5-year-old boy named Andrew Furr Jr., known to everyone simply as AJ. He possesses a resilient spirit and a wide, eager smile that charms the neighbors and his teachers at the local elementary school. AJ spends his days drawing pictures, playing in the yard when permitted, and seeking small moments of joy despite the suffocating darkness pressing in around him. His young life represents a tragic paradox of innocent light trapped within a broken environment. Neighbors often notice the little boy looking out the windows or wandering near the porch, always hungry for attention and simple kindness. He navigates a world that demands a maturity far beyond his 5 years on Earth from the very moment of his birth. His existence is bound to the state child welfare system. His early records document a profound struggle for survival in a setting devoid of stability. The bright potential of his childhood stands in heavy contrast to the grim reality waiting inside the walls of his own home. The architects of this chaotic environment are his parents, Joanne Cunningham and Andrew Frone Sr. Both adults remain consumed by severe substance abuse, transforming what should be a safe haven into a nightmare of neglect. Their daily routines revolve around securing and consuming narcotics, leaving the children to fend for themselves amid unimaginable squalor. The interior of the Dole Avenue house resembles a wasteland of hoarded trash, broken furniture, and rotting food. Piles of soiled clothing block the hallways, and the overwhelming stench of animal waste permeates the air. Windows remain covered, plunging the rooms into perpetual twilight. In this toxic atmosphere, Joanne dictates the mood of the household with extreme volatility. She directs erratic outbursts of anger toward her children, creating an environment of constant fear and walking on eggshells. Andrew Sr., a former attorney stripped of his professional standing, acts as a passive enabler who conceals the extent of the abuse from outside observers. He uses his legal background to manipulate visiting social workers and deflect probing questions from concerned citizens. The couple forms an insular defensive unit, united only by their shared addictions and their absolute refusal to provide a nurturing home. AJ and his younger sibling endure this daily reality without a voice, dependent on two adults incapable of basic human empathy. The outside world continues to turn, yet inside the house, time stands still in a cycle of worsening deterioration. The fragile facade shatters on the morning of April 18, 2019. At precisely 8:30 in the morning, Andrew Sr. picks up his cellular telephone and dials 911. The emergency dispatcher answers expecting the usual panic of a missing child report, but instead hears a methodical voice on the line. Andrew states plainly that they cannot find their 5-year-old son and suggests the boy might have simply wandered off during the night. The absolute lack of urgency in his tone sends a cold wave of suspicion through the communication center. Patrol vehicles dispatch without delay, their sirens cutting through the crisp morning air as they speed toward the Dole Avenue residence. The physical geography of the neighborhood makes a spontaneous wandering scenario improbable for a child of his size. The house sits on a busy street with heavy morning traffic, yet no witnesses report seeing a small boy walking alone. First responders arrive and step through the front door, hitting a physical wall of noxious odors. The smell of human and animal feces combines with the stench of rotting garbage, forcing officers to cover their noses. Debris litters the floorboards, making it difficult to walk without stepping on ruined household items. The deplorable conditions shift the focus of the responding officers from a simple missing person case to a profound assessment of the parents. They secure the perimeter and establish a command post on the overgrown front lawn. Within hours, a massive community mobilization begins across the Crystal Lake area. Law enforcement coordinates with local volunteer groups, transforming the nearby parks and recreational areas into grid search zones. Dive teams don heavy rubber suits and submerge into the murky waters of local ponds, sweeping the muddy bottoms for any sign of a small body. Search dogs pull against their leashes, sniffing the wooded areas and the edges of the neighborhood blocks. Helicopters circle overhead, their rotors beating with a deafening roar as they scan the suburban landscape with thermal imaging cameras. Amid this frantic search effort, Joanne and Andrew grant their infamous television interviews on the grass outside their home. They attempt to steer the narrative away from the squalor of their house and plant the idea of an unknown, shadowy abductor. Joanne crosses her arms and stares vacantly, refusing to shed a single tear for the cameras. Andrew speaks in calculated sentences, emphasizing how they check the closets in the basement, using precise language that feels rehearsed. Detectives stand just out of frame watching this bizarre public relations campaign unfold with growing alarm. The officers document every discrepancy in the parents' timelines, noting how their stories shift slightly with each retelling. The television crews broadcast the eerie pleas across the region, generating immense public sympathy from viewers unaware of the truth. Yet inside the police department, investigators begin pulling the prior state welfare reports and past incident logs. The overwhelming physical evidence of neglect inside the house contradicts the parents' claims of a loving home. The massive search outside continues, but the core group of seasoned investigators turns their attention back to the very people demanding the camera's attention. As volunteer searchers continue scouring the damp tree lines surrounding Crystal Lake, the core investigative team abruptly shifts their primary focus inward. Detectives realize the physical evidence at the Dole Avenue residence sharply contradicts the theory of an outside intruder. They separate Joanne Cunningham and Andrew Fern Sr., transporting them to the local police precinct for formal questioning. The precinct building sits several miles from the search zones, featuring sterile corridors and soundproof rooms designed to isolate suspects from external influences. Inside these windowless spaces, investigators employ meticulous interview techniques to establish a rigid baseline of the parents' behavior. Joanne sits rigid in her chair, maintaining an eerie silence and refusing to offer any cooperative details to the officers. Andrew Sr. adopts a different strategy, attempting to control the narrative by offering excessive, highly calculated explanations for every minor discrepancy. He uses his former legal training to parse words, dodging direct questions about the hours leading up to the 911 call. Detectives note the distinct lack of desperation in their voices, a chilling absence of the panic typically exhibited by parents of a vanished child. Instead of asking for updates on the search grid, the couple focuses entirely on minimizing their own exposure to legal scrutiny. Investigators listen patiently, allowing the parents to build a fragile tower of allies that can later be dismantled piece by piece. The deliberate pacing of the interviews serves a strategic purpose, keeping the suspects contained while other units dig into their past. While the interrogations crawl forward, a parallel team of analysts begins pulling massive stacks of archival files from the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. These documents outline an infuriating chronological record of systemic failures and bureaucratic blind spots spanning 5 entirely documented years. The paper trail reveals that AJ entered the world with dangerous narcotics already flowing through his tiny bloodstream. State workers initially removed the infant from John, placing him in protective foster care for the first 18 months of his life. However, Rigid reunification protocols prioritized parental rights over the undeniable safety of the child. A family court judge returned the boy to the Dole Avenue house after Joanne completed a minimal set of state-mandated requirements. From that moment forward, social workers documented frequent hotline calls reporting the deplorable living conditions and concerning noises echoing from the property. Each time inspectors arrived, they encountered severe hoarding, lack of adequate heating, and overwhelming odors of decay. Yet, the legal threshold to permanently sever parental rights demanded a burden of proof that overworked caseworkers consistently failed to meet. Andrew Sr. routinely manipulated these visits, utilizing complex legal jargon to intimidate younger state employees into closing their active files. The system demanded absolute definitive proof of active ongoing danger, allowing profound emotional and physical neglect to masquerade as mere poverty. This fatal loophole trapped AJ in a dissaying environment where his abusers held complete authority over his daily existence. The most devastating missed opportunity in the bureaucratic record occurred just 4 months prior to the disappearance. In December of 2018, a local police officer responded to a welfare check at the house and noticed a massive, alarming contusion on the right hip of the 5-year-old boy. The officer immediately demanded an explanation and forced the parents to take the child to a local emergency room for a full medical evaluation. Inside the examination room, doctors questioned the family about the origin of the severe marks. Joanne and Andrew instantly blamed the family dog, claiming the animal had aggressively jumped on the boy against a hard surface. Medical professionals suspected foul play. Noting the shape of the injury did not align cleanly with a canine impact, they attempted to question AJ privately, hoping the child would reveal the true source of his suffering. However, years of psychological conditioning and absolute fear kept the young boy silent in the presence of outside authority figures. Because the doctors could not medically rule out the dog theory with 100% certainty, the state investigator lacked the concrete evidence needed for an immediate removal order. The case was categorized as inconclusive and rapidly closed out in the agency database. Officers returned the child to the custody of the very people causing his agony, walking away while the front door closed behind them. This staggering failure emboldened the parents, reinforcing their belief that they could inflict immense pain without facing any legal consequences. Armed with this extensive history of abuse allegations, the lead detective drafts a comprehensive affidavit to secure a physical search warrant for the Dole Avenue property. A local magistrate reviews the alarming Department of Children and Family Services files and immediately signs the authorization document. Crime scene technicians arrive at the desolate house wearing full white protective suits and heavy respiratory masks to combat the biohazardous environment. They systematically document the interior, photographing the locked doors, the scattered feces, and the child's bedroom that resembles a prison cell. The forensic sweep yields zero evidence of forced entry, broken windows, or unknown footprints leading away from the property. Instead, the team focuses intensely on gathering internal documentation, securing personal computers, financial records, and electronic devices left behind by the parents. The most critical pieces of evidence retrieved from the hoarding piles are the cellular telephones belonging to Joan and Andrew. Investigators bag the devices in specialized Faraday pouches designed to block remote wiping signals from cellular towers. These phones represent the hidden, unfiltered reality of the household, containing communications the couple believed were permanently erased. Law enforcement courtiers transport the sealed evidence bags to a regional cybercrimes laboratory located in a secure facility several towns away. The physical search of the house concludes, leaving the property wrapped in yellow police tape as a silent monument to the ongoing tragedy. The focus of the investigation now narrows entirely from the sprawling outdoor search grid to microscopic fragments of digital data. inside the sterile environment of the cybercrimes laboratory. Digital forensic analysts begin the painstaking process of device extraction. The technicians connect Andrew Sr.'s cellular telephone to a specialized hardware terminal running advanced data recovery software. They initiate a physical layer extraction, a deep scanning method that copies every single sector of the flash memory chips. This intricate process bypasses the standard operating system, reaching deep into the unallocated space where deleted files reside. Modern digital devices never truly erase a file upon deletion. They merely remove the directory pointer, leaving the underlying data intact until it is overwritten. The analysts monitor glowing progress bars on their dual-screen displays as the software painstakingly reconstructs these orphaned data blocks. Hours stretch deep into the night as the computer algorithms sort through thousands of cached images, text message fragments, and application logs. The technicians apply specific chronological filters to isolate any media created in the months leading up to the April disappearance. They sift through mundane daily records, searching for the slightest digital footprint that might contradict the parents' carefully constructed alibi. The slow, methodical pace of the forensic recovery mirrors the quiet intensity of the interrogation rooms back at the police precinct. Every recovered text message provides a new piece of the psychological puzzle, revealing a household consumed by drug-seeking behavior and deep-seated hostility. Then, the automated scanning tool flags a specific, heavily fragmented video file buried deep within the deleted cache of the device. The lead digital analyst reconstructs the corrupted file and presses play, watching a horrifying scene unfold on the high-definition monitor. A digital timestamp in the corner of the screen permanently marks the recording date as March 4, 2019. The shaky footage reveals a terrifying dynamic inside a dimly lit bathroom of the Dole Avenue house. Joanne towers over a visibly terrified and bruised AJ, wielding absolute psychological dominance over the small child. She bradies him with vicious, demeaning language regarding soiled underwear, her voice dripping with cruel authority. The little boy stands shivering against the wall, his body bearing the unmistakable physical marks of prolonged severe abuse. Andrew Sr. operates the camera from behind, recording the torment rather than intervening to protect his vulnerable son. The footage captures the raw, unvarnished truth of the victim's daily existence, shattering the theatrical illusion of a loving family. This 2-minute clip completely obliterates the false narrative of an unknown intruder and provides the definitive proof of extreme maltreatment. Analysts immediately copy the devastating file to an encrypted flash drive and dispatch a courier back to the investigative command center. Detectives review the footage in absolute silence, their expressions hardening as the reality of the child's final weeks comes into agonizing focus. Armed with this irrefutable digital weapon, the lead interrogators stand up from their desks and prepare to confront the father waiting in the isolation room. The interrogation room at the Crystal Lake Police Department measures 10 by 10 feet, containing only a heavy metal table and 2 bolted chairs. Lead investigators step through the heavy steel door, carrying a portable computer terminal loaded with the recovered digital file. They place the screen in front of Andrew Frone Sr., offering no verbal preamble before pressing the playback button. The horrific audio of Joan berating the bruised child fills the confined space, bouncing off the cinder block walls. Andrew watches the screen, observing his own silent complicity play out in high definition. The arrogant, calculated demeanor he maintained for days crumbles under the weight of this irrefutable truth. He slumps forward in his metal chair, burying his face in his hands as the digital timestamp destroys his fabricated timeline. Defeated by the technology he thought he outsmarted, the former attorney waives his right to silence and begins to outline the true events of April 14th. He details a horrific sequence of events driven by Joanne's rage over the soiled clothing. According to his confession, Joan dragged the young boy into the bathroom and forced him to stand under a relentless stream of freezing water as a twisted form of discipline. The child endured this freezing torment until his small body failed to sustain the physical trauma and dropping core temperature. Andrew admits that they placed the unresponsive boy into bed, hoping he would recover without intervention. Hours later, the parents checked the bedroom and made the grim realization that their son had met a permanent tragic end. Instead of calling for medical assistance, self-preservation took absolute control of their actions. The spatial reality of the Dole Avenue house provided the parents with a temporary mapper hiding place. Andrew retrieved a large plastic storage tote from the cluttered debris and placed the lifeless child inside. He carried the heavy container down the wooden stairs and secured it in the dark, unfinished basement of the property. For 3 full days, the couple lived above their terrible secret, ordering food and consuming narcotics while the community remained unaware. On the night of April 17th, Andrew realized the police would conduct a routine welfare check upon receiving reports of a missing student. Under the cover of darkness, he loaded the plastic tote into the trunk of his vehicle and drove away from the Crystal Lake neighborhood. He traveled an estimated 8 miles north and west into the rural wooded outskirts of Woodstock, Illinois. The landscape transitioned from glowing suburban streetlights to absolute rural darkness, providing the perfect cover for his final act of betrayal. He stopped his vehicle along a desolate stretch of Dean Street, carrying the remains into a dense patch of timber away from the main road. Using a simple shovel, he dug a shallow trench in the damp earth, wrapping the child in multiple layers of heavy plastic before covering him with soil and scattered branches. Following this detailed confession, detectives place Andrew into the back of a patrol cruiser and demand he guide them to the location. The convoy of law enforcement vehicles navigates the winding country roads under the harsh glare of tactical spotlights. Andrew points toward the specific cluster of trees, directing the evidence recovery teams into the brush. Technicians clear away the loose soil and the broken branches, uncovering the plastic wrapping that conceals the missing child. The massive, frantic community search ends not with a joyful reunion, but with a devastating recovery in the cold dirt of Woodstock. The legal reckoning for the horrific events on Dole Avenue unfolds with intense public scrutiny. In July of 2020, Joanne Cunningham stands before a McHenry County judge inside a guarded courtroom. Stripped of her defiant posture, she abandons her right to a trial and pleads guilty to the highest degree of intentional homicide. The presiding judge delivers a blistering condemnation of her actions, sentencing her to serve 35 calendar years inside the Illinois State Penitentiary system. Because state law mandates that sentences for such severe charges be served at 100% time, she will never walk free during her natural life. Months later, Andrew Frone Sr. enters the same courtroom to face the consequences of his extreme cowardice and active participation. He accepts a negotiated plea agreement, admitting guilt to charges of aggravated battery, involuntary manslaughter, and the legal concealment of a homicidal death. The court hands down a definite sentence of 30 years behind bars, ensuring the former attorney will spend his remaining decades locked in a steel cell. The conclusion of the criminal proceedings brings a permanent end to their reign of terror over their children. State workers remove the surviving younger sibling from the toxic family lineage, placing the child into a secure, loving adoptive home far away from Crystal Lake. The physical house on Dole Avenue, standing as a rotting monument to the tragedy, faces demolition by city officials. Heavy machinery tears down the peeling walls and hauls away the debris, erasing the physical structure from the neighborhood. The empty plot of land receives a covering of fresh grass, allowing the community a small measure of visual peace. The tragic fate of the young boy ignites a fierce wave of public outrage directed at the bureaucratic failures that enabled the abuse. Citizens across the state of Illinois organize massive protests demanding absolute accountability from the Department of Children and Family Services. Investigative journalists publish scathing exposes detailing the exact legal loopholes and rigid protocols that forced caseworkers to return vulnerable children to toxic environments. In response to the overwhelming pressure, state lawmakers draft sweeping legislative reforms designed to overhaul the child welfare system. The new mandates prioritize the physical safety of the child above the inherent rights of the biological parents. Protocols for medical evaluations receive strict updates, ensuring that inconclusive emergency room visits trigger automatic mandatory holds rather than case closures. Funding increases allow the state to hire specialized legal teams to assist caseworkers in fighting manipulative parents in family court. The boy with the wide, eager smile becomes a permanent catalyst for change. His legacy, saving countless other children trapped in similar decaying households. The community erects a memorial playground in his honor, ensuring his name remains associated with joy and safety rather than pain and neglect. While justice caught up to the architects of this suburban nightmare, not all predators operate behind the closed doors of a family home. Some criminals wear the badge of public trust, hiding their dark compulsions behind a uniform designed to protect the very people they hunt. This chilling reality leads us into a case where the line between the investigator and the perpetrator vanishes. These 5 cases stand as grim reminders that while the camera rarely lies, the people in front of it often do, ultimately unraveling their own deceptions through their bizarre public facades. As we continue to examine the psychology of those who hide in plain sight, ask yourself, how many other predators are currently smiling at a camera, waiting for their own mask to slip?